hello from hell, where I'm sitting in a moment now, and I would like to take you all to the journey, to continue the journey around the world, and to look over the large networks, both of scientists, peoples, and facilities within countries and within the regions. Our first presentation will be about the Chinese Marine Station Network given by Professor Zhang Yife, but unfortunately he's not joining us personally, so we are ready to listen to the recorded presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zhang Yife. I'm from National Ocean Technology Center. Thank you for the organizing committee's invitation. I'd like to this opportunity to share with you about the Marine Stations network in China. The content of my report is divided into 4 aspects. The first is overview. Secondly is observation and forecast systems. Thirdly is marine stations observation systems. Lastly is the role of the marine stations. China is located in the southeast of the Asian continent, bordering the northwest Pacific Ocean. The continental coastline is more than 18,000 kilometers from mouth of the Yalu River to the mouth of the Berumen River. If the coastline includes more than 5,000 large and small islands, the total length is more than 32,000 kilometers. There are more than 500 marine stations in China, which are mainly managed by the Ministry of the Natural Resources, government departments of the coastal provinces and cities, enterprises and institutions. The operation and the forecast system is mainly composed of the Ocean Observation Network, Data Transmission Network, Forecast System, and Disaster Assessment Systems. The Ocean Observation Network operates data through the satellites, aircrafts, marine stations, survey and volunteer ships. The data is transmitted through the satellite, spatial line, internet, mobile network. The forecast department will obtain the data to the firm numerical forecast products, which are provided to the disaster assessment systems and to provide service for the people's life, economic construction, disaster prevention and reduction, scientific research, etc. Marine stations refers to the place where hydrologic and meteorological elements are observed for a long time, continuously and automatically on the shore, port, island, and offshore platform. Conventional observation meaning includes tide, water temperature, salinity, wave, air temperature, humidity, air pressure, wind speed and direction, precipitation and visibility. The collection, processing and storage of the observation data shall complete with the China national standard. Some stations are also equipped with the radar systems, GIS systems, broadband seismic stations, chemical and ecological monitoring projects. There are usually 2 types of marine stations. One is a standard type, which is usually man-made stations with a standard meteorological field and hydrological operation for satellites. The other is compact stations, which is generally unmanned without standard meteorological field. This is a standard meteorological field picture. This is standard hydrological station picture. The slide shows the standard marine stations. It consists of the three parts: duty room, meteorologic side, and tide well. In duty room, we can perform chemical and biologic tests. At the meteorological side, we can obtain the data of the meteorological elements. The tide well can obtain the data of the hydrologic elements. This slide shows a compact marine stations. It is suitable for the place such as docks, ports, and platforms, etc. Due to the conditions, unlike the previous standard one, this station has only two parts: meteorological side and tide well. This is Aquaculture platform station's picture. The marine station automatic operation system is a hydrometeorological operation equipment installed in the marine stations, which is mainly composed of hydrologic subsystem, meteorological subsystem, and wave subsystem, and data receiving and processing subsystem. Marine stations usually use an optical cable mobile network such as CDMA and or GPRS, VHF radio, microwave, and satellite for data communication. Observation subsystem activity transmits the observation data to the data processing subsystem every minute. The data receive and processing subsystem can also send commands to the retrieve historic state. The operation data of the marine stations is transmitted to the central stations through the optical cable special network. The central stations transmit the data to the area forecast centers through the optical cable special network, and the sea area forecast center transmits the data to the National Marine Environmental Forecast Center and the National Marine Data Information Center through the optical cable special network. The marine station is equipped with a 10 meters large buoy and a 6.3 meter buoy and 1 meter small buoy. The buoy observed marine environmental parameters include meteorologic parameters such as wind, air temperature, air pressure, and humidity, hydrologic and dynamic environmental parameters such as water temperature, salinity, wave, and ocean current, visibility, water and quality, and dioxide. This slide shows the buoy configured for the marine stations. In 2009, 34 marine stations added the X-band radar observation service. The X-band radar system detects wave and current data. The observation data complied with the marine observation station's construction specification. This slide shows the X-band radar system equipment configured for the marine station. Since 2003, 19 marine stations have installed high-frequency ground radar equipment. They are used to detect ocean surface current. The observation data complete with the specification for the construction of the marine observation data stations and the specification for field comparisons test of the high-frequency ground wave radar. This slide shows two kinds of high-frequency ground wave radar equipment configured for the marine stations. One is portable, and the other is array type. In 2009, 56 marine stations added GNSS observation service. It is used for sea level change monitoring, air-sea interaction, disasters, marine weather monitoring and prediction, seabed earthquake monitoring, etc. This is a slide is a GNSS operation equipment configured for the marine station. In 2011, 25 marine stations added broadband seismic stations in order to actively deal with the threat of the tsunami caused by the earthquake. Release a real-time monitoring of the shore submarine earthquake in China, and played an important role in the disaster prevention and reduction of the offshore marine surrounding environment. This slide is a broadband seismic station equipment configured for the marine station. In recent years, marine stations have added new operation mercies, such as mobile operation vehicles and UAVs, in order to actively respond to sudden marine disaster, quickly respond and continuously track marine disaster. It plays an important role in early morning decision making and disaster prevention and reduction. This slide is the UAVs and the mobile observation vehicle equipment configured for the marine stations. The application of marine station is beneficial for the marine disaster prevention and mitigation, sea level monitoring and navigation, safety supporting and scientific research. For marine disaster prevention and mitigation, based on the operation data of the marine station and the satellite cloud picture, Marine Forecast Department could provide red marine disaster prediction. By analyzing the status of the tide surge during number 5 Maria typhoon in July 2018 landing, the government issued red warning information. It is a typical successful disaster prevention and mitigation ahead of time. For sea level monitoring, compare the tide data from the marine station with the vertical coordinates from GNSS. Sea level change are monitored. For navigation safety supporting, the real-time tide data and the meteorological data of the forts and ports provide data support for the navigation in coastal waterway of China. This is a marine station of Zhang. The fishermen can get the sea conditions information from it. In terms of the scientific research, the marine station has provided a large amount of the data support to the various research institutes, universities, and other institutions in China, and has played an important role in scientific research on the climate change, development, and utilization of the marine resource, marine disaster and prevention and reduction. That's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can't really have any questions, but we can put them on the Q&A or contact directly the author, Professor Yife. That's why we can easily travel further to the central part of the Southern Pacific Ocean, also to the middle of the night, where I hope Dr. Neil Davies is waiting the executive director of the Gump South Pacific Research Station, who will tell us about the Pacific network of marine stations.
Well, thanks very much. Yes, and it's not the middle of the night because I happen to be here in the center of this picture in Oxford in England right now. So
okay.
I didn't have to get up too early. But you're right, I usually would be calling from the other side of the world, which gives us a slightly different perspective. And the island of Moorea here in the center of the Pacific Ocean, which is part of French Polynesia, an overseas country of France, where I've lived for the last 20 years or so. And more specifically, the island of Moorea has two international research stations, the French National Lab Criob, which is established in 1971 and has been monitoring the coral reefs, some of the longest continuously and intensively studied coral reefs in the world off the coast of Moorea. And more recently, established in 1985, marine station that I run, the University of California's Gump South Pacific Research Station. And also you can see our location up here just off the coast of the main island of Tahiti and a small atoll up to the north, Tetiaroa, where we also have a new marine station facility. And just for those who don't know, French Polynesia, overseas country of France, has a massive exclusive economic zone of over 5 million square kilometers. So you have a population of less than 300,000 people, but a very, very large marine real estate the country is responsible for, as is of course true for many of the Pacific islands. So just a few words about the station that I run, Gump South Pacific Research Station, and say owned and operated by the University of California, particularly through collaboration of campuses from the University of California system. We support research across all domains, biological, physical, social science, but also the humanities, basically anything that the university does. And our focus, of course, is tropical systems, particularly human environment relations. And of course, coral reefs are a very major part of this system. And say a few more words about that. So one of our programs on the theme of networking, one of our most significant programs is funded by the US National Science Foundation, part of its long-term ecological research network, which has sites mainly in the United States, but across all different habitat types. And since 2004, we've hosted the Moorea Coral Reef LTAR, which is the only coral reef in the US network. And the data and long-term research that's supported through that program complements the ongoing research led by France and others concentrated on Moorea and more broadly in French Polynesia. So we have a very, very significant time series data across a lot of the dimensions of ecological systems, focused on the coral reef specifically. And that network, the LTR, is part of is the US National Science Foundation support component. There's other LTR networks around the world. You can see, I think many of them are shown on this slide, and we're with one rather lonely out here in the South Pacific. So we're obviously very interested in collaborating with those other sites and hopefully expanding this type of network. I should say also importantly, on the site, we're located on Tahitian land, and half of the property is devoted to a community center in partnership with a traditional knowledge and an educational nonprofit, a Polynesian community-based organization. This is a really great opportunity to combine and exchange scientific data with traditional ecological knowledge and understanding, and obviously the wisdom that comes with that, and the very long, the Polynesians have a very long time evolving in closely with the natural systems of these islands. And this has been an opportunity to combine traditional knowledge with modern scientific knowledge. And one example program that really has brought those together was the Moorea Biocode, which we started in 2006, and it was really to inventory all of the species, all of the ecological parts, if you like, of this entire system. So to genetically sequence, photograph, and get museum specimens of all the animals, plants, and many of the fungi from the island, from offshore down to about 200 meters deep on the coral reefs up to the mountain tops, when it included the terrestrial systems and the rivers and freshwater systems. And so that program ran over a few years, supported by the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and really provided the inventory baseline for what biodiversity, what species is there, and importantly, the tools enabling non-taxonomy experts, other scientists, ecologists, and government agencies and local people to potentially access and identify species very easily using genetic or visual tags. Today, a lot of the research coming out of the marine station, but also marine stations are coastal on land, and so addressing the communities around those places, broadly aimed at the grand challenges facing society today of sustainability, environmental justice, but also focus on the economy and social justice issues too. And scientifically, one of the big challenges we face in addressing those is to connect the large-scale changes that we see, climate change, ocean acidification, and so forth, with local impacts. So how do we downscale these? And obviously biodiversity is inherently local, and every place is different. We need to understand how these processes connect and play out in different parts of the world, particularly our coastal systems. And that is basically what we need to navigate the Anthropocene. And I'll just move from that now, from the focus of the station, to some of the networking efforts that we've been involved in, particularly in the Pacific Islands. For a while, we've been part of the National Association of Marine Labs as a US institution, but it's clear that there's a need for greater networking within the Pacific Island region. So one effort that we've been involved in our part of Eastern Polynesia is this transect from north of the equator, from Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands, down through the Line Islands to French Polynesia, so across the sort of tropical heart of the Pacific Ocean in the central Pacific, and connecting these labs, two labs I mentioned on Moorea, the Tetiaroa Atoll Research Lab, the Nature Conservancy has a lab in Palmyra Atoll, and two marine stations on Oahu in Hawaii. So we've been working together to coordinate some programs. And then from that, and partly in response to a conference that was held in Hawaii, supported by the Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology, as well as the University of Hawaii, invited some research stations from other islands across the Pacific. And this led to an initiative which is still ongoing. We've had a series of challenges, of course, in the last year or two to meet with each other, but thanks to Zoom, this is moving forward to establish the Pacific Island Marine Station Association, which will be really very timely to be a component, one of the networks, hopefully, will be joining a network of networks under WAMS. So I'm happy to talk more about that later. But just, I also wanted to give a couple of examples of programs. You know, it's all very well forming networks, but what are the networks enable us to do? You know, how can they make us greater than the sum of our parts? And so a couple of ideas or examples that would be interesting to consider in the context of WAMS and our discussions later. Be one around data, so networking the cyber infrastructure that we have now to connect stations together, as was mentioned earlier, in sort of railway network, think of it, the London tube map or something, but connect pipes of data around the world to each other. Data is a very recognized resource. Of course, the big question, who benefits? And we want these data to benefit local communities and sustainability efforts. And so there are programs around that which are very diverse, but could be something that I think a network of places that stations are embedded with their communities could contribute to. And so we have a project along these lines called the Fair Island project, which the Foresight network I mentioned across Hawaii to Tahiti is some of the prototype partners in that. Another initiative we started quite a few years ago now was to combine efforts and learn how to apply new technologies in biological observation. And here, particularly thinking of genomics, the biomolecular layer, and observing biodiversity at the fundamental level of DNA and other molecules. We've initiated a project with the Genomic Standards Consortium, and that's been one of the things that networks can contribute to and develop and share common standards to achieve interoperability of the data that we generate at our stations. So it's an important reason to have networks and the chance to get together that was initiated and then became a deliverable under GeoBon globally, the Group on Earth Observations for 2015 back then. And we had a lot of consultations, including meetings at Marine Station Network events where we considered this and presented it, got input, a charter and a roadmap was developed. 2014, it was published. You know, look at this was to coordinate observations across both sort of buoys and open ocean observations, but also organisms. And we're all ecosystems within ourselves, within people and fish or other organisms. There's networks to be observed, our buildings even, or forests, up to watersheds and actually whole islands and up to our island home, planet Earth. So our first coordinated event was in partnership with the European program to do a global standardized, and was a marine initiative to observe on the same day marine microbial diversity across the world. So that involved going out, leveraging the infrastructure we have to sample in very diverse places, but using a common protocol and get sequence data back. And so by 2014, this network showed that it could go out and do a coordinated action. We have a global genomic observatory should we choose to use it. So I'll finish with a consideration of how we might program WAMs and taking advantage of the ocean decade could potentially help enable. One, I'm part of another Marine Decade program, the Ocean Biomolecular Observing Network, and we have a planning to submit a proposal. This is the National Science Foundation in the US, but hopefully there are other sources for an international research coordination network, a network of networks around genomic observatory concept and how the stations could contribute to that. That might be an interesting approach to consider. Another one would be to address climate action. Again, I'm part of another Decade Ocean program, which is the Blue Climate Initiative. And that would be linking ocean-related technologies and approaches to addressing climate change. And marine stations could obviously have a very significant role in that too. So I think with that, I'll end and look forward to the discussions. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Neil. And thank you for giving us such promising Pacific Islands perspective for marine stations. And I think we might get one question. Nicholas, yes, please.
Hi, Neil. Good to see you. I was just wondering what the status of the Moria biocode is now, and also what you think the feasibility of this project would be in terms of exporting it to another region, because I mean, the potential of such an avatar is huge.
Thanks. Yeah, well, the inventory phase, which is the sort of core of the biocode project, is complete. It doesn't mean we've got all of the species into the reference database, but we have museum specimens, DNA sequences and images for most of the species on the island, and that's being used now as a scaffold, which really helps identify species in other parts of the region. Just having one reference database done well can be very useful elsewhere. So in terms of Morea, now we've moved more into the observatory phase of, okay, now we've got this reference database, how can we use it, and the tools that are becoming increasingly accessible to track ecological interactions over time. So that's something we can continue to develop, but there's still a core need elsewhere to inventory the species and build up the reference databases. And marine stations around the world could be the local hubs to do that. So we do have these well described, at least a few of them around the world that we can then interpolate between that and integrate those into monitoring around those sites.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. With all other questions, please go to Q&A and hopefully they will be answered later. And now I would like to invite Dr. Lloyd Smith from the Red Sea Research Center to actually introduce the main presentation of this session. This will be about marine station in Saudi Arabia. So please, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so my name is Lloyd Smith. I'm the director of the Coastal and Marine Resources Core Laboratory at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, that's KAUST. And I'm presenting today with Mike Berumen. He's professor and director of the Red Sea Research Center here at KAUST. And Mike can't be with us live, so he's pre-recorded his talk. And actually, both of our sections are going to be in video format, but I'm here live, of course, for introductions and questions. So just as a little intro, KAUST, for anybody that is not familiar with it, is just a brand new university, we'll say, 12 years old, located on the shores of the Red Sea, about 100 kilometers north of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We're a graduate-only research university, and given our location, we have a strong focus on marine science. This is a purpose-built community. It has housing for roughly 7,000 people, relatively self-sufficient, schools, markets, recreational facilities, as well as the university campus and labs. And the university, if you want to kind of break it down simply, consists of academic centers and shared use core laboratories. So Mike is the director of the Red Sea Research Center, and I'm the director of the Coastal and Marine Resources Core Laboratory. So basically, Mike is my biggest customer. So I'm going to show you now a video that'll do a much better job than me of showing the university, a nice video overview of the university, as well as KAUST's Marine Station.
KAUST Core Labs and Research Infrastructure offers the University of Saudi Arabia's research community cutting-edge technologies, expertise, state-of-the-art facilities, and a wide range of training. Now let's explore the core. The Coastal and Marine Resources Core Lab is a complete marine station located on the shores of the Red Sea. We specialize in marine and coastal field support, oceanographic instrumentation, and engineering, as well as indoor and outdoor research aquarium facilities. Our lab operates Saudi Arabia's first fully equipped research vessel, RV Thule, along with a fleet of smaller coastal boats throughout Saudi Arabian territorial waters. We support KAUST faculty and students as well as the kingdom in delivering groundbreaking coastal and deep-sea survey operations as well as cutting-edge laboratory facilities. Our main service areas include marine operations, marine engineering, and the seawater laboratories for aquatic biosystem simulations, Sea Labs. At the heart of Sea Labs is the Life Support System, which provides up to 3.6 million liters per day of raw, filtered seawater, bringing the Red Sea straight to our labs. In Sea Labs, we are running a 2030 Vision collaborative project between KAUST and the Saudi government to increase seafood production in Saudi Arabia by developing aquaculture technology that will allow various fish species to be raised in floating net cages in the Red Sea. KAUST Red Sea Research Center is establishing the first reef fish aquaculture program in Saudi Arabia. Researchers from the Reef Ecology Lab are using Sea Labs to successfully breed 6 species of coral reef fish and raise 4 of those species to the juvenile stage. The discovery of deep-sea corals in the Red Sea was a scientific milestone. Corals were found at depths of up to 850 meters. Rearing of these corals in the Sea Labs provides live samples that are readily available for researchers at KAUST. Our marine engineering team supports all of KAUST's ocean research by providing the design, integration, installation, and maintenance of oceanographic systems, sensors, and vehicle platforms. The team facilitates all shallow and deep-sea sampling using remotely operated and autonomous underwater vehicles and technologies, some of which are being developed in-house. A major achievement of the team was mapping the Saudi sector of the Gulf of Aqaba. We continue to map the entire Saudi jurisdiction of the Red Sea. Since starting operations in 2008, we have conducted and supported hundreds of offshore surveys, including the first dive by humans to the deepest part of the Red Sea in 2020. The KAUST Fugro Center of Excellence in Marine Technology is a partnership that has greatly increased KAUST's capabilities, enabling access to the extreme environments of the Red Sea and advancing the development of subsea research technologies. We have also developed a center dedicated to marine safety and hydrographic training at KAUST, known as KMAST. Marine safety is at the forefront of all offshore research. This center provides scientists, researchers, and strategic partners with high-level marine safety and marine firefighting training to international standards. Through an agreement with the Saudi Aviation Investigation Bureau, we provide this important organization with training and assistance in marine operations and technologies in case of a maritime aviation disaster. Our scientific research diver course, accredited by the American Academy of Underwater Sciences and endorsed by the Saudi Water Sports and Diving Federation, is the first of its kind in the kingdom, providing an opportunity for KAUST to greatly advance scientific diving training and safety standards in Saudi Arabia. In our organization, we take great pride in creating an inspiring environment where researchers are able to achieve their goals, furthering the scientific ambitions of KAUST and Saudi Arabia.
And then we'll have Mike's video.
Hi, I'm Michael Berumen. I'm the director of KAUST's Red Sea Research Center. I'm sorry I can't join you live for the conference today, but it's my pleasure to introduce types of research activities that we are engaged in on the academic side at KAUST. The video that we just saw tells us a lot about the key resources that we have available in our core labs that support our marine activities. And for a few minutes, I'm just going to tell you about some of the major areas of work that we focus on in the Red Sea Research Center. The Red Sea is very interesting to many of us for a variety of reasons, but it's a very unique marine environment. It's very warm, it's very salty, and there are many different types of marine ecosystems within this environment, including what can be argued to be the world's longest coral reef system. The Great Barrier Reef is bigger by area, but the Red Sea has coral reefs on both the east and west coasts of the sea. And so we can argue with our Australian friends that it is the longest reef system in the world. In the Red Sea, the organisms that live here are adapted to very high temperatures and other extreme conditions that would be very challenging for organisms in other parts of the world. In this sense, many of our researchers treat the Red Sea as a kind of natural laboratory for studying climate change impacts. The Red Sea, in some ways, looks like what most of the rest of the world's oceans are predicted to look like in the next 50 to 100 years. Probably as a result of those extreme conditions, the Red Sea has very high levels of endemic species that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. And this unique fauna allows us to conduct all types of interesting research, especially related to adaptation and how organisms can cope with stress. One of the key features of KAUST is that we are immediately located on the coast of the Red Sea. And with the combination of our world-class laboratories and access to the sea that's largely provided through Lloyd's team, allows us to have a great setting in that we are kind of a combination of field station and advanced research laboratories. The number of faculty inside KAUST who do some aspect of work related to the Red Sea is quite large and is growing every year. There are several areas of work that are of focus for us. We have a very strong contingent of biology and oceanography researchers. We also have a strong contingent of geoscience researchers, but there's many other areas in which we have expertise, including robotics, genomics, and even applying engineering and other types of and other computer science applications such as artificial intelligence. The key areas where we have focus are in some of the shallow coastal systems, such as mangroves, seagrasses, and coral reefs. But our researchers really take advantage of a large number of systems, and pretty much all of the habitats in the Red Sea are covered by at least somebody inside KAUST. The major themes that we touch on include biodiversity research, trying to understand all the organisms that live in the Red Sea, and as I mentioned before, the adaptations. This is very important, helping the kingdom make conservation decisions and priorities. In addition to having the access to the sea, as I mentioned, KAUST has really great world-class laboratories backing up the processing of samples after we've been out in the field. And that includes a real strength in genomics and other types of sequencing approaches. So another area where we have a lot of focus is on understanding the resilience of ecosystems, particularly as increasingly there are disturbances that impact the marine ecosystems around the world. One of the areas of focus includes understanding fisheries and how to better manage fisheries in the kingdom, which requires fundamental biological information that we are actively pursuing in key species. Saudi has also made a push to increase its tourism activities, which is an area that we're very happy to support, because sustainable ecotourism can be done, but it has to be done carefully and planned out thoughtfully. Another area of important work for us is helping to guide and support the kingdom's what are called giga projects. These are major coastal developments. There are a couple of them that are not even really fair to call them new cities. They're almost like new small countries. And KAUST researchers and faculty play a leading role in advising and guiding them for making the most sustainable decisions that they can. And all of those giga projects are committed to very high environmental standards. So then just to finish up, the Red Sea has a lot left to explore. There's a lot that we still don't know. And so we continue to partner closely, not just with Lloyd and his team in the core lab, but also with international researchers from around the world to help us with our explorations. And we're committed to continuing to learn how this fascinating system works. So with that, thank you. Be happy to receive questions over email or through Lloyd, and enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lloyd, and your colleague. I think we have to keep our questions to the Q&A session, or maybe the later session. And let's see if our last presenter of the session is with us, Dr. Fransisca Delgado.
Unfortunately not. Fransisca
No.
Delgado
Okay.
just sent us a message that she wouldn't be joining us today, but she has kindly provided her slides for us. So what we will do is we will upload the slides in the flash presentation session on the website, so anyone could access them when they like to later. So we will need to improvise here a little bit, and what we wanted to offer is maybe just to play a couple of flash presentations pre-recorded that we have already received, because we actually have a few of the authors with us today online. So Iwona and Matt, over to you now. If that's the plan you would like to proceed with, we can switch to the flash presentations now.
Thank you, Anna. Sorry, Iwona. Sorry, I know we're kind of we're improvising now, but yeah, essentially, some people had put in flash presentations because there wasn't space within the program. But as one of our speakers can't make it, we thought it would be quite nice to play a couple of these at least, especially as they're with us, as Anna said. So yeah, Iwona, I guess we just sit back and let Anna play a couple of these presentations, and then we can go straight into discussion afterwards. So
Yeah, of course, I'm absolutely fine with this.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. Do you want to?
Sounds great. Thank you. In that case, I will probably ask Paola Galli to say a couple of words, because we have his amazing flash presentation about the mares and Maldives ready to play. So Paola, if you would like to quickly introduce it, we can play it for you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody. It's a very pleasure for me to be here today. And what we will present to you in our flash presentation is our Mare Center, and center located in the Maldives, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, in a local island. We are not in a resort. We are share the space with local people. And I think that the most important things that we have in this center that we call MARE Center, Marine Research and Education Center, is that we are able to work in a perfect way with the government. So we have any kind of agreement to collect samples, to do any kind of activities, but also that we don't spend time just only to work on corals or fish, on the environment, but we work also with the population. We do any kind of activities. And so I think that is very important. And last thing is that our target is to be an open source. Every people can come to do research and to share their results with the community. Okay, I think that you can show the presentation, the flash presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paolo Galli. I'm the director of MARE Center, Marine Research and Education Center. It's a center located in the Maldives. And this center started in 2009, thanks to an agreement done between my university and the government of Maldives. And in this center, we do different kind of activities. We investigate biodiversity and ecology. We study climate change and ecosystem health. We do some research related with the sustainable use of marine resources, other with the human geography, but we do a lot of different kind of researchers. And the campus is organized in 3,000 meters square campus, where we can find high-tech labs. We can find the canteens, boats, and diving center, and much more. And in the 10 years of activities, we have been able to produce more than 3,000. We have been able to host more than 3,000 students and researchers, produce more than 150 scientific publications, and to be part of more than 50 international congresses. And this center has been possible to have to work and to realize this center because we have agreement with several ministries of Maldives, and one of the most important agreements that we have is that we are able to collect samples and to export samples. And just only to give you an example of what kind of research we are able to do in this campus, we are able to do something with the coral restoration. We do something we are trying to investigate how it's possible to grow fast and better the corals, and we teach also the people around the world how to do this. And we do also some research related with new materials that can be used as scaffolds for the growth of oceanic organisms. And we have been able to produce a plaster to be put in the corals to try to take care of the corals. And we do some experiment related with microfibers that can be released in the ocean from surgical face masks. And also we do something very strange, probably in this strange period with COVID. We have been able to produce a sanitizing gel for the hands, starting from Maldivian natural products, just only for the community. And also we do something with the eutrophication. This is very big issues in the Maldives. And for instance, here we can see algae growing above corals. This is the normal situation. And also one of the problems is the land, the use of the land. Here is the capital in 1972, and in 2014 was the situation of the capital with the same size. And this is the situation of the capitals just only a few years ago. But now, just only 1 year ago, 2 years ago, they started to realize the skyscrapers. And so it's very big issues in the Maldives. And also another problem is related with the quality of air. We investigated the quality of air. We have been able to detect dioxins in some part of the Maldives because they burn any kind of waste. And just only to give an example, in some resorts they produce more than 70 kilo per person per day of waste. And just only here some data. And one strange thing is that we find high level of dioxin in front of a fish market for the engineers using from the fishermen boat. Another problem is related with drugs. The Maldives is very big issues, and analyzing the sewerage system of the capitals, we have been able to detect cocaines, heroines, and other drugs. And here, as you can see, we have different kind of topics that we are able to investigate in this place. And please come and start to work with us. And if you want to have more information, please have a look at our internet site. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paula, and apologies again for a small technical delay in the middle, but it is great to have you with us today live. So if anyone has any questions, they could be asked just in a few minutes. If we have time, we will probably play just one more flash presentation to give you an example from another region. And then, as I've mentioned, we have them already uploaded on the website. So if you go to the Congress live session of the website, you can watch them at any time. But the next short flash presentation that we are going to share is from our partners and co-organizers of the Congress, Scottish Association for Marine Science, based in Oban. And the short overview of the facilities is recorded by Nick Ovens, the director of SAMS.
Hello. As the director of SAMS, I would like to take this opportunity to tell you what I think makes us so special. Above all, it's our world-class research. From marine plastics to marine protected areas, from the Arctic to aquaculture, you'll find SAMS working on the key issues confronting the marine environment in the 21st century. Importantly, we address our ocean's global challenges by working across disciplines and in close collaboration with international partners. We are a friendly team with a dynamic and responsive can-do attitude. Secondly, it's SAM's reputation, built on a unique heritage that reaches back to the earliest days of modern marine science, while looking forwards through our partnership with the University of the Highlands and Islands, Scotland's newest university. Together, we are training the next generation of marine scientists and developing our region's marine economy. Finally, it's our spectacular location. More than just a hashtag, we really are the university on the beach. We work literally meters from the marine environment that we study, and we live in one of Europe's most beautiful landscapes. Being in such a special location gives us the opportunity and headspace to think in a different way.
Thank you so much. And I think with this, we can probably move on to the final part of the day one today, which is the Q&A session and discussion. So I will hand over back to Iwona and Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I can see a raised hand of Matt.
Hi. Yeah, so obviously we'll take broad questions at the moment, and I mean, I just want to say it's been fantastic seeing just the phenomenal resource in these marine stations and seeing things across the world. I mean, it's been really exciting. And one of the things I wanted to ask actually was specifically for Neil. We've all quoted all the environmental issues. We've quoted climate change, the biodiversity crisis. We've had disaster planning, China and things like that. Neil, you are the only person who mentioned issues around social justice and wider sort of economic growth and some of those societal challenges. So I guess my question for you, but actually anybody else who's speaking today, is how much should marine stations be involved in that side of things, and how do we do that? Because that, I know for some people that will be way out of their comfort zone. They'll be happy with observatories for biodiversity, but once you start talking about environmental justice and social justice, I know some scientists would sort of, oh, I'm not really sure that's my area. But I can say for a fact that in the UK there's a bigger push now for this to bring in sort of the social side of things. So yeah, question for you first, Neil, and then if anybody else wants to, is yeah, how do you see that developing, or the marine stations?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I think it absolutely should be something that we get involved with. And I think we're also actually very well placed to do so compared to some other institutions, perhaps, partly because we are, I guess it depends how you define marine stations, but we are embedded in local communities, often rural, sometimes in major cities. So we have that, we're part of the community, number one. Most of us live there. I mean, we have visiting scientists who come in and leave, but we have an investment in that place. So as a focus on place-based research, we're in there for the long haul because we have substantial investments and properties and physical infrastructure. And then I think like many places, we started with more of the physical and biological, and social science and social engagement has become more and more significant over the years. And initially that starts with social science. So we can support social science, anthropology, but also that connection with government agencies and with local communities in identifying what are their priorities and how can research help plug some of the knowledge gaps that are needed to achieve the sustainability goals. So particularly as the UN and others, moving towards the recognition that sustainable development is a priority that has to take place locally, that has to involve people. There are many different ways of developing, and so that's a socially determined choice. And then our scientific research can be directed to support that. But we need the bridges, we need the infrastructure, the platforms to engage with society. And I think as institutions, we need to think about how we build those into our infrastructure, so that there are various different ways of doing it. And frankly, that's one of the interesting things to talk with a network like this, is how different people have approached it, different institutions have approached it in different contexts, because obviously this is social, so it's will be different in different places depending on the culture and environmental context of each institution. But there's a lot to learn there, and it's becoming necessary because humans are driving the ecosystems. So if you want to understand the systems, we have to understand scientifically human roles and motivations in that. Even if you're approaching it purely from a scientific, detached approach. But certainly, if you want to help support change and improving livelihoods for people, then we need to engage, and we can. We're well placed to, I think.
If I can add something, Matt, I think, I don't know, it's just a reflection. If we count also the nature as one of the stakeholders in the social justice, as it's very often seen like it in other regions and countries, we definitely can say that we all work on this, because really the nature interest is very often in conflict with the social interest. Just one reflection. And then we have two other persons, Julia first and then Augusta.
So my question is actually for Augusta. So you mentioned earlier during your talk that there's no marine networks in Brazil, and there's no marine networks really in the region of South America. And obviously these can have challenges on the coordination of marine research efforts. So I was wondering, what do you think are the challenges to creating a network in Brazil, and how could they perhaps be overcome?
Okay, thank you, Julia, for the very interesting question. So, this puzzles myself as well a little bit, but I will try to give you a precise question to this. I mean, a little bit try to frame this, but I guess that the problem is that our marine stations belong themselves to universities or to the military or to something that we in the first place are not very well connected. So I think that for our regional network to work, we need to our institutions or to our home institutions to talk first. So I think this is the main issue, what I think in Brazil. But while I was doing this presentation, I was actually asking to myself, what can I do to solve this? And I think that actually we had this association, this Brazilian Association for Marine Biology for a while ago, and they were moving in this direction. But then suddenly they disappeared because, I mean, it was a one-man endeavor. And as we know, one-man endeavors usually fail because heroes last for only a few years, right? So it was not institutional. It was something like driven by one soul. I mean, and this cannot be sustained for the long term. So I guess that we have to talk now. I mean, the main marine stations have to start talking and see how this can work more institutionally, so that we can have, in the first place, a regional network, so that we can also offer more to our World Association of Marine Stations. So, but I think that it will be at the end in the other way around. I think we could move faster in the World Association and then work at our regional associations as well, because I don't know, I suspect it will be slower here in our region. This is one thing. So thank you, Julia. But I would like to take the opportunity and also reinforce met issues on social justice, environmental social justice. So I think this is paramount for marine stations. I can see marine stations playing a key role on environmental sustainability and ecological economy and everything, because most of the impacts are felt by along coastlines, right? So we are at the forefront of this. So I can tell you what is happening now here at the Sebemar USP. So the USP is the University of São Paulo is a very, very large university. I'm talking about 6,000 faculty, 45,000 students, so it's huge. And now we are in elections for the dean, for the USP dean. And one of the most promising candidates just talked to me and say, hey, Guka, look, I need you to build up a task force on blue economy. I need you to tackle blue carbon. So it's time now to fix problems. So in his vision, and he's someone from the physics, so it's incredible, saying to me, look, I am a biologist, right? Say, look, we have to solve this. So, and I really like this approach, because I think that we passed the time that we are really saying how bad things are. We know it's already, of course, we need to do more and more and more, but it is time now to say, how can we fix it, right? So propose really what are the answers for this crisis? And we are not doing this very well, I guess. It's like saying to a doctor that, look, you have cancer, but I don't know how to cure it, right? So you have to say, well, we have all these issues, and here is the ways that we are putting forward to solve them. So I think that this will be the next decade thing. And I think that we as marine stations and marine biologists, oceanographers and marine scientists as a whole, we are at the forefront of the problem. I would risk saying that we are perhaps the ones most at the forefront, because the worst consequences will be felt along coastlines. And we are there. So we are the stewards of this, right? So we need to talk a lot about these sort of things. And this is why I see it.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, Michael, he just sent on the chat, he sent a web page for Sea Society, but maybe you would like to refer to this, Michael?
I thought you needed to do that. I didn't realize I was in control of that. No, that's a link to a program set up by the University of Gothenburg that I'm not directly involved, but several colleagues are. And I think that might just be worth people looking at when they have time. There's a lot of information. There are regular seminar programs, for example, that the public and they're involved. It's a program from the University of Gothenburg that involves the economists, social scientists, and so on. So it's an interesting thing for people to look at. The reason I raised my hand was a comment, really. A few years ago, I coordinated a program called Assemble, which some of you will know, which is a marine access to marine infrastructure in Europe. In that program, one of our partners was Chile, and particularly the marine station La Cruces, just to the west of Santiago. And at that time and after, I know they were trying to organise a Chilean group of marine stations. I don't know where that is at the moment, but it might be worth our Brazilian colleagues contacting La Cruces, and also Concepcion, where Christian Vargas, I know, is involved in a lot of European programs focusing on climate change, and Concepcion in the south of Chile. So it may be worth our Brazilian friends contacting if they don't know them already, it may be that they know about it already. So I apologise if they do. You know, I know they've got to focus on Brazil now, but you know, in time they can go to the other side of the continent and have a broad range of South American interests. Thank you.
Can I just a very quick reply of this? In fact, I am now working with Stefano Barreto, which is at the head of the SE in PUC Chile in Las Cruces.
Okay.
And we are at this present moment working on an agreement between the SEBIMAR and the SE. We are close friends actually, so it made really things much easier. But it's also to that Concepcion with Vargas and all those colleagues, they are doing really, really well. Yeah. And I will say that Chile, they are doing incredibly well. And I think that if there is some regional network to rise from this, I think that Chile will be a spearhead, and will help us out to move together. We are trying now to make these agreements, but this will be like the SIM and SEBIMAR, which are like marine stations, but they are small. But perhaps it's a beginning or a way of doing things in a larger scale, like building agreements, which commit more than 5, 6, 7 marine stations, and then make this moving on. This is a possibility for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Anna, your hand is raised. Sorry.
Thanks, Iwona. Yeah, I had a general question, sort of coming back to session 1, I guess, where we've heard a lot of interesting talks about history of WAMS and how it developed. So this might be like a bit of a provocative question, I guess, but I was just wondering if any of the speakers of the first session could just quickly wrap up for those who haven't been there. So what do you think are the next steps sort of in the development of WAMS, and what are your expectations from this Congress, and maybe specifically from the closed session on the day 3? So yeah, what do you think the next steps are now that we've heard of all these different regional networks? Yeah, whoever is happy to take this.
I think everybody made some good points in the first session. Yeah, welcome to those of you who weren't there. I mean, our aim from this really, and sorry, this sounds really boring, but it's important. Initially, it's a functioning committee that actually is committed to this. I think one of the issues with the original WAMS, it was its fantastic concept and a fantastic idea, but actually, when you read about what it intended to do, I don't think the resource was there to really facilitate that. So one of the things we want to do is make sure we've got some really good systems in place so that we know who's running this, who takes control. Kazuo made a very good point about it shouldn't just be left with a few people, and Augusto just said the same, the heroes as he called them. If this is relying on 1 or 2 people or even half a dozen, it will just flounder as those people move on. So I think we want to get some engagement very quickly with the whole concept, which is what this Congress is about. And the other thing I would say straight away is that we'll already be planning how we do this meeting again, how we get more people engaged, because I think it's all about momentum. Other than that, there are a lot of practical things we'll be discussing at the meeting on Friday, to which, of course, you're all welcome to join us. But yeah, Mike, I think you want to jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, just you're exactly right, Matt. I mean, that's Kazu and I were in right at the beginning, and to be perfectly honest, it was just a handful of people, and we were, I was director of Christineberg at the time, Kazu in Shimoda, and you couldn't manage everything, and people were changing, the directors were changing, so it needs much more structure. And one of the things, a bit like as interested in your update on Mars, the Secretariat going to the NBA, I think WAMS will need some kind of permanent Secretariat, wherever that is. That will be up for the steering committee to decide, and then much broader representation, and as you just said, regular meetings, plus maybe 1 or 2 flagship activities that many of the members of WAMS can be involved in.
Yeah, I completely agree with Mac's idea. Yeah, we worked previously a lot about the WAMS, but I think the flagships for example, something like ocean days, ocean, am I right? Yeah. Some days that we get together at different locations of the world to collect marine organisms or investigate marine organisms together. Or also we just can involve the citizens or the people gathering together to the marine station to do that. And finally, we can report from each country or each association from the world together to hold one international congress or report. So I think the next action that we need, I feel that something's lacking in these days after the WAM's establishment, but we need something to do together. Not only in a certain venue, but we can do several things together at all different places in the world. So I think, and also what I want to say now is that I feel very exciting to hear lots of situation, lots of marine stations in the world. And I also could find some common aspect of marine station. And all the marine stations are doing activities of education and research, and also outreach activities, and also may be struggling against the governments or political science politician relationship. So we have many things in common. So I think the WAMS is not the really good opportunity or good association that we discuss such kind of common things together. And this is a nice conference.
We are running out of time, but I think we can take the last hand raised of Nicholas.
Thank you very much. I think that's a really good idea to try and identify an initiative that anybody can rally around. And I would perhaps just draw attention to, I think a really good idea that Neil raised in his presentation, which is Ocean Sampling Day. I think lots and lots of people here have been participating in Ocean Sampling Day. We've run it through a European project called Assemble Plus, which we now for 4 years managed to cover that. There's a small iteration continuing in the Atlantico project with an all-Atlantic Ocean Sampling Day, where we've been a little bit lenient about what we consider Atlantic, but I think there's a lot of people that are keen to maintain this initiative, and perhaps this is something that WAMS could say, look, we will take on this initiative and be the custodians of this for the next years, especially if we run it as an activity anyone who wants to participate can. Sequencing can be done locally rather than being done centrally and so on, providing we set in place the proper protocols, the proper metadata standards and standard operating procedures. We can do this globally, and if it works in the long run, maybe we can even move to WAMS producing an annual biodiversity state of the biodiversity report or something, which would give great visibility, would be an excellent initiative, would give visibility at the UN level as well, and be something that could be really good to have towards the end of the UN decade, and say through these 10 years we set this up and we are now able to regularly look at these key organisms or these key indicators to tell us where we are with things, what's happening with global warming, so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely great idea. We can really continue the discussion, I think, on the next days. I would like to thank you all the presenters and all the participants of this Q&A session, and also our technical support, Anna. And I'll hand on to Matt maybe to wrap up the day. In one sentence. Thank you.
I will. Thank you, Iwona. Yeah, we're slightly over, but it was a really great discussion. So obviously thanks to all the chairs and all the speakers today. I don't know how many of you are back tomorrow. I hope most of you or a lot of you can make it, because we've got some really good sessions. And as I said, I keep reiterating that we've got the day 3 meeting as well, where we're really going to thrash out some of this detail. But I think the main thing we've all agreed today is that there's such an excitement about the potential for this, and we all want to make this work. So yeah, thank you all. It's been a really good day. thank you for all the technical support, and see you all tomorrow for the next day.